Hello, and welcome to today's very special edition of Spectrum Heartshare with the legendary Master of Voice and Angelic Emissary Stewart Pearce. And Stewart has worked extensively in the entertainment industry, training actors before writing a number of best-selling books such as The Alchemy of Voice, The Angels of Atlantis, and his latest Diana, the Voice of Change. The latter based on the last 2 years of Diana, Princesses of Wales' life and the time when Stewart coached the wonderful lady, helping to ignite her unique radiance and beauty. Stewart's light and love shine through in everything that he thinks, says, and does. He is a true agent of love and a dear friend and brother to us all. And it's with our great honor that we welcome to this special edition of Heartshare, our brother Stewart Pearce. Welcome, Stewart.
Hello, everybody, and welcome, Stewart Pearce.
Hello. That was extraordinary, just exchanging. Forgive me 1 second, I just need to close something down, otherwise we are going to be deeply troubled by a constant pinging. Done.
Done. Okay. Beautiful. Welcome, brother.
Hi there.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is such an honor to have you here today. You have helped so many on their journeys, and you've helped me on my journey as well. And I would just love if you could just explain for people what it is that your purpose and what you are providing as a master of voice and in your work as an angelic emissary.
Well, thank you. And it's a great honor to be here. So thank you for inviting me on to your wonderful Mindshare, Heartshare conglomeration. And I just met the wonderful Jason. So the god Poseidon is with us. I feel as though I need to become a immediate merman and start swimming towards you through the warm waters of, we've just been talking about the warm waters of Hawaii.
You are safe in these waters, Stewart, and we are safe to talk and explore and help others on the call and the ones that are listening to this afterwards. We know that you're in London now, so we have a big time difference, and we appreciate you taking the time to share with us your heart, mind coherence.
If I had my way, I would be in my bliss city, which is Manhattan or New York. But of course, because of COVID, I haven't been there since January. It was last February of 2020. I was running a retreat in Egypt when all the doors started closing. I had my agent calling me saying, Mr. Pearce, COVID is coming. And I said, okay, what are you going to do about it? Please get us onto the next plane out of Egypt.
Wow.
So we were able to get on, I think there were 30 ladies and myself. I was running a retreat called Honoring the Priestess. I've been going to Egypt for many, many years as a pilgrim, but running retreats there for 20. However, we were on the last plane out. So I'm in London. But I've just heard yesterday that Mr. Biden is opening the doors. So guess what? I can be in New York City on November the 3rd. Yay! Yes. Which is really important. I want to be at the premiere of the Spencer movie. So I have big meetings with a lot of very important people in New York about my book. However, back to what Jesse was asking. So for me, you see, I've always been in connection with the multidimensional universe, which means that as a child, I saw the spellbinding wonder of force, of source, as well as being aware of the fact that I was apparently a 3D human being as a child. I was caught by the flow of force and the extraordinary lights that were part of it, orbs and great beams of light that could be either verticalized or as diagonalized, sometimes horizontalized, but mostly they were vertical. And I knew that these beams of light were the angels. They spoke to me. Mm-hmm. So I tried to communicate to the world what I was seeing in my innocence, thinking that everybody could see what I was seeing, like most children would. And I soon discovered that they didn't. And I had great difficulty with schooling. I had great difficulty reading and engaging in computation, you know, math. And so I just thought the easiest thing to do is shut up. So I shut up for 2 years and observed. And that taught me stillness, which was great. My brother, who's a year older, he was my code breaker. He spoke for me. So I learned the ways of the 3D. I realized that wherever I walked, apart from my darling mother, who was unconditional love, unconditional love, unconditional love, that wherever I walked, I always engendered disapprobation and punishments. And, you know, at that point, this was just after the Second World War, that if a child couldn't learn, the best thing to do was to beat them.
Right.
That was apparently to make us more intelligent.
We'll get where you. Yeah.
Literally with a stick once or twice a week by the headmaster. Anyway, and so I sort of gently switched off and found a way of speaking 3D language. And you know, becoming a successful adolescent, discovering sex, falling in love for the first time, discovering God in a big way through the ritualized forms of religion, because the school that I went to was something that we call here Anglo-Catholic. So it's still Anglican or Episcopalian, but also celebrates Mass from the beauty of Mass, you know, from the high church, so to speak, perspective. So everything becomes profound ritual. And I was dazed and startled by the ritual. It seemed so, it was so familiar. I knew that I'd been there many times before, but in different ways, different expressions, different computations, you know? So I threw myself into it, and all the way through this, I was not academic, but people kept saying to me, there's something about your voice, there's something about your voice. And I learned by this that when I was acclaimed, the best thing to do was to go to the light, because what happened around the individual who gave that wonderful reference, or you know, not necessarily adoration, but approbation, you know, approval, I would see the light of their aura take on these wonderful dimensions with all these extraordinary permutations of light. So I just went to the light. I thought, well, fuck the other thing for a game of soldiers. I'm just going to this. So I became an actor, and through the 70s, through my 20s, I worked as an actor. Was becoming the greatest actor of the 20th century, or at least that's what my desire was. And there I was living in New York City, about to make a movie, moving to Los Angeles, and the telephone rang and everything went into slow motion. And I began to see all of the things that I saw as a child, but here on the telephone line was my brother saying, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you know what I'm doing. I'm going to Los Angeles to make a movie. I'm going to become the greatest actor of the 20th century." He said, "I think you need to sit down." Everything was in slow motion. It was the most peculiar altered state of consciousness. And he said, "You need to know Mum's got terminal cancer. She's got 3 months to live. What are you going to do?" So in that moment, I made a decision, leave the movie, come back to the United Kingdom. Our father had died 3 years prior. They were both very young in their passing. It was time for them to leave and go on another destiny, and to allow both my brother and I to go on our destiny, because my father was a very extraordinary man, but a very difficult man. You know, he was a war hero and a decorated officer and a member of the royal household, and patriarchy, patriarchy, patriarchy. Anyway, so I came back and nursed my mother for a year, and then she passed. This was 79. And just after she passed, the telephone rang, and again, this thing happened. And here was a remarkable woman that I'd worked with at the Royal Shakespeare Company at Stratford-upon-Avon, who was the voice director, saying, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm not doing anything. I'm being this." And she said, "Well, why don't you come and teach for me?" And I said, but she said, "No, you've been through 3 years of training with the company in all of my classes. Come and be my apprentice. And there's this woman I want you to go and work with." I don't want to work with her. She's just taken over the Conservative Party, and I'm a diehard socialist. So 2 weeks later, there I was walking into Downing Street and coaching Margaret Thatcher. I mean, baptism by fire, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the wheel of fortune turned, and suddenly of course, in working with the voice of someone, one's working really with the inner terrain of the individual, because our voices are at the very core of our beings. They're physical means that we use to convey the way we think and the way we feel. And if there's something not quite right with our voices, you know, I mean, for example, it could be a lot of tension, you know, because we don't open our mouths, you know, it's always to do with something that isn't fully aligned or integrated within the inner psyche, within the inner psychophysical nature of the individual. So I started perceiving psychically what I could do to help, and realizing that we each have a unique vibration. So in voice terms, we each have a signature note, which is the song of our soul. It's the sound of our soul. We're all unique. Nobody has that note, that arrangement of harmonic coherence. Just amazing. And I started tuning people into their notes, and I could see that their auric sheath opened in this emblazoned way, and all of their spirit guardians came in.
Wow.
So that's what happened through the early 80s. I was very fortunate. I was given the opportunity as the head of voice at one of Britain's leading conservatoire, which was a classical school. So it was my laboratory for 17 years. It taught me how to teach, and it taught me how to teach voice and to look after the dear ones who were in my, you know, in my jurisdiction, as it were. And I developed a career in the, you know, in the industry as a recognizable voice coach, and working with stars and, you know, blah 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 blah. But all the time there was this burgeoning mysticism. And you know, I was claimed by an Indian guru, so I'd spent time in India. I was met by a Sufi elder, so I worked in the Middle East with a Sufi elder. By this time, I visited friends in New Mexico, and suddenly out of the desert came this Native American shaman who claimed me for 3 years, and I worked with him. So it was all to do with this preparation of embodying the vital substance of what source energy is within our soul, within our spirit, which I believe we all share.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then in 87 rather, I met, it was the harmonic convergence, and a friend of mine said, "You're really good at these spot-on readings, Stewart. Come to my crystal store in Glastonbury." He just opened up, and I loved him to pieces, and I love crystals. So I went down for the harmonic convergence, completely ignorant, not knowing what it was. And as soon as I arrived, I was on fire. Literally, the whole of my energy field was just zzz. And as I read all morning for people, you know, just giving 15-minute readings for, you know, $5 or whatever it was, and felt exhausted by lunchtime. So I went and sat on the tor, which means sacred high hill, Glastonbury Tor, and started meditating, because of course all my Indian teachers had said, "Go and meditate and all will be fine." So I went and meditated. And in the middle of this meditation, I heard these extraordinary sounds. I mean, these high harmonics. And I opened my eyes, and in front of me, floating in the air, were these 12 rather, huge orbs, different colors. And I heard that voice that I remembered from my childhood inside me, not on the outside of me. I heard their harmonics on the outside, but the voice was on the inside. "We are the angels of Atlantis, and we bring you a temple of sound healing that you will call the alchemy of voice." And that was 34 years ago.
And then you put yourself in service to others ever since, right?
I dove in. Yeah. I mean, it meant I had to move away from the relationship that I was in, because my partner said, "What do you mean you've seen angels? You're mad." So I thought, oh gosh, no, this means a transition is necessary. So I went through divorce and became a dedicated priest, I guess.
Wonderful.
Highest calling, it seems.
It's
It's
been
very intriguing to me, the whole vibration of our speech. And I've watched several of your TED Talks and different things, which I love, and give you accolades for that. Because would you say that our voices are the signature of our soul or the fingerprint or of sorts, because no one has the same vibration, the way we carry it, the way either we're blocked or we're not blocked, or, you know, some things come just innate and some things are taught. I think that is innate. And obviously, as we go from infant to however old we are, those things are guided or taught so that your voice can change. But I think that what you teach is really how to get back to that source, to clear your intention, your mind heart coherence, if I'm getting that across correctly.
Yeah, totally. It's a beautiful way of describing it, you know. Yeshua, the great master, said, "Blessed are the children, for they shall inherit the kingdom of heaven." I feel the kingdom of heaven is here. It's this celebration of the innocence, and that we all have an inner child. And the more we connect with our inner child, the younger we become. I've discovered. I mean, I'm surprised to say that I'm nearly 70 and I still feel I've just begun, you know, I've just begun. And I look forward to the next 30 years, maybe even 40 years, who knows? Because I know with such conviction now that I've been able to allay many of the misgivings or insecurities that I had earlier, simply because I was constantly trying, people constantly wanted me to fit into their systems as a round peg in a square hole. It just didn't work. And now 10 years ago, I resigned all of my establishment positions, and now I'm free. My wings unfurled, and they're huge. So yes, we each have a unique sound. We each have a sound which is right at the core of our beings, meaning it arises right out of our hearts. If words arise from the heart, they enter the heart. If words arise from the tongue alone, they don't pass beyond the ears. The difficulty with our Western world is that we've been educated, socialized, and conditioned into just being cerebral. And so most of us have these really, like so many of my friends in the United States, particularly in Los Angeles, I mean, they're all really here. Oh my God, what is this? You know, as opposed to,
it's almost like they're pushing from their head only. Like they have a cone on, you know, I get that. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Because this is the doing zone, isn't it? We're always doing.
Yep.
We're always voguing.
Human beings.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing we brought in, and for me, it came from my relationship with music, and when I started to communicate with the higher consciousness and getting downloads through song and through lyrics, and often finding that space of connection, right? And but it wasn't an immediate situation for me. I knew that I was communing with something that was at a higher level, but it took another 6 or 7 years after that before I had my true awakening. And it wasn't but 1 or 2 days after that awakening when I discovered the Angels of Atlantis and you. And I had this similar experience where I was being embodied and then seeing orbs of light and experiencing learning in that moment in pretty much the real time that all of these songs and everything had been coming from Sandalphon and I've been learning my information from Metatron. And so that was a really profound and amazing experience to realize. I was like, there's something about this 12. And then I'm looking around and I'm typing in 12 archangels, and then Angels of Atlantis just pops up, and here's your body of work now, still opening minds and hearts all across the world. So brother, you've been doing this for so long, and it's so miraculous, and what you've been able to uncover and be able to create and share from you and your purpose. And so it's amazing. It's awesome to know that you still have and ready for rigor for the next 30 years and the next 40, because this is that life force that comes through now is just so palpable. And when we're in alignment, right? And so and in this journey, could you explain kind of how, in your terms, like how does the divine masculine and the divine feminine kind of play into this priesthood, if you will, or this higher calling of service to others?
Well, there are three parts to my answer, and the first part is a story, which also crystallizes where we've just been, meaning where we've just journeyed in our conversation. And it's a very ancient story that is arising out of the Middle East, and possibly was told by the great visionary poet Hafiz. And the story goes that the divine one made a statue of clay in his or her, as we would say today, his or her own image, the divine one, the super being. And, if you imagine the statue of clay standing here, asked the soul to enter the statue of clay, but the soul refused. Why would all that is and shall be forevermore in a blessed sacred state wish to be in a small statue of clay? And so apparently the divine one asked the angels to sing a seraphic chorus. And the soul was so enchanted that the soul agreed to enter the statue of clay. And so began Adam Kadmon, and so began Homo sapien. And so you see, if that is true, that sound and angelic countenance in relation to the divine are actually one within us, that our note was given to us by the angels. And if it's given to us by the angels, I believe that angels as cosmic guardians are thoughts of God, that actually it was given by the divine. And so to answer this latter question that you just asked me about the divine feminine, the divine masculine, I believe in my reckoning, what you're sharing with me, what you're asking me is, how do I find my divine sovereignty, which is a balance between the king and the queen, sovereignty. And this is through the I am presence, that the divine one brings us to the I am, the flow of the universe. I am the breath of life.
Teach me how you had me speak, and teach me how you had me do, and teach me how you would have me speak and think, right? Yeah. Yes, brother.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, the I am mantra is something, because my master in all of this is Saint Germain, in all Thoth, if you like, who has been with me for the last 40 years. And he really has masterminded or mistress-minded the whole of my career, because all of the great turns in my career, it's not something that I've necessarily, when I say my career, my creative evolution, I should really call it. It's not really to do with the fact that I thought, oh, I must do that. It's that I've turned a corner and the wheel of destiny has gone clunk. And there I am meeting, like Diana, for example, meeting an extraordinary woman who was a very great friend of Diana, who in fact, for about 5 years, was a great patroness of mine, meaning that this woman was a society lady. She was a restaurateur, a very famous restaurant in this city. And her food was amazing, Italian food, absolutely amazing. I mean, the story goes that Mick Jagger and the Stones would call her in the middle of the night after a concert and say, Mara, we need feeding. And she'd get up and make them pasta. That she was an extraordinary human being, and very aligned with soul, very aligned with spirit, uncanny psyche. She actually, I was with her when she prophesied to Madonna that Madonna was pregnant. And Madonna said, no, I'm not pregnant. And then something like 3 weeks later, she discovered she was pregnant. So Mara said, I've got somebody I want you to work with. And I said, who's that? She said, oh, it's Diana. And I said, no. Not that I'm not honored, but look at the chaos, the confusion, the circus, I mean, darling Diana had scars of betrayal in her being, because so many people like us, she'd gone to and worked with, holistic practitioners. And then they'd taken the story to the daily papers and, garnered thousands and thousands of pounds. So I said, no, I'm never, ever going to do that. And I saw Mara look slightly wistful. And then about 6 months later, she said, "Why did you come for lunch?" And of course, I loved her cooking. So I went to the restaurant and walked in. And I said to the head waiter, "Where's Madame?" "Oh, she's downstairs with somebody important." I said, "Oh, who's that?" "You'll see when you get there." So I was set up, you see.
Set up, yeah.
Into this room, and there is Mara, and there is Diana. And Diana jumps up, grabs my arm, and here is the beautiful Diana right in my face with those sapphire blue eyes saying, "You will work with me, won't you?" And in that moment, I fell in love. I mean, she was just luminescent, this beautiful being. And I said, "Yes, I will, but our relationship must be completely confidential. I'm never coming to KP, come Kensington Palace. Come to me in beautiful studio in Chelsea. Pay me by cash. Whenever you need me, call me on your phone. Do not organize. Let's keep this secret." So it was a confidential relationship, which enabled me to interface with her sometimes twice a week, where she would come and go through whatever process she needed to go through. Sometimes it was immense crying because of all of the horrors that she was experiencing from the establishment.
And so the reasoning for that is so that you could have a safe container with her that wasn't affected by, right? It wasn't affected by the patriarchy or the other issues that are going on with her, right?
Yeah, because I mean, the first thing she said to me was, "Well, what shall I do? Because I mean, people think of me, you know, the public think of me as the people's princess." And I said, "No, you're the queen of everybody's hearts." And she said, "Can I use that?" That's where it started. And so in the Martin Bashir interview, the great BBC interview where she said, "There are 3 people in this marriage," that was when she said, I want to be the queen of everybody's hearts. And you see, she looked at the rushes of that interview. She looked at the, you know, the video of that interview, and she didn't feel that she came across well, in the sense of that she was always, her head was always in submission looking, and she was using this sort of tiny voice. So I said, "No, we're going to change all of that. We're going to have you completely aligned through the pranic cord, and we're going to get this breath working so you really sit in the middle of your voice, and therefore your soul's note will arise." And of course, she loved all of this because she was an empath. Oh my goodness me, I could go on and on. She was without doubt the most extraordinary human being I've been very fortunate in my life to meet some pretty extraordinary people. You know, Margaret Thatcher, Benazir Bhutto, Mo Mowlam, Marianne Williamson, Meryl Streep, blah, blah, blah. But wow, what do we say here? Diana took the biscuit.
So what is it about Diana that made her so luminescent? What is it? And you discover this in your book, and I've been reading this, and but what in your opinion, you know, what is that luminescence? Is it's just an innate source of hers, or her innate harmonics is just happened to be on this earth at this very important time, you know?
I feel it's 3 things. She was very awakened in her body.
Yeah.
So she was really embodying herself. She was living through the entirety of her body, was very keen, a keen swimmer. So she swam every day, and often she would go to the gym 5 times a week and work out. So she was really in her body. And therefore, she was beginning to feel how her sensorium was fashioning itself to really hold the acute sensitivity of her empathic status, acute empath. And because we all know we're empaths, that we feel often in a hyper vigilant way, everything. Whereas many of our brothers and sisters are thinking, well, what's your problem? Why are you, you know, she felt on extraordinary levels. So I'm mixing the 2 things. Firstly, this extraordinary awareness of her sensitivity and how she was fashioning it into strength within her physical sensorium. And secondly, that she was so in connection with the inner child, the innocence of the inner child. And I believe that this quality was the furnace, if you like, for the extraordinary kindness, compassion, immediacy, and love that she showed everybody. And thirdly, it was her destiny to be an anointed one.
I love that. I think that I resonate with that in a lot of ways. The innocence and the ultra mindfulness and taking every tiny step very consciously and mindful makes the big steps. So when you make the big steps off those tiny conscious steps, your big steps are not mistakes, they're aligned. And I really, really resonate with that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And so I endorsed her empathic intelligence, whereas of course the old regime, the patriarchal regime, wanted to endorse an intellect and wanted her to be able to dance through the halls of academia. And I mean, this was not Diana. Similarly, it was not me. I learned to read when I awoke out of 2 years of self-muting and hummed a lot. And I remember hearing my mother say, you know, Stewart is always humming. Perhaps we should put him in a church, into a church choir. Wow! I thought, wow, that's gonna be amazing. And of course, I couldn't read. So although I was standing holding a book, I copied the other boys. I just parroted the other boys. And then something miraculous happened, because I began to see sound again as waves. The way that I was taught to read was in staccato. The cat sat on the mat, whereas actually everything for me was waving. And so I would see the sound waves as the force of the source. And so I jumped onto a sound wave, and as a result, the duration of the notes in relation to the duration of my breath and how one could shape in song the tonality of a word, because underneath the note were words. So I began to learn the duration of notes in terms of reading basic music. And then automatically the words dropped into me, and I started reading singing, and then could read speaking. Diana was the same, seeing force.
There's really a whole flow to it all, isn't there?
Oh, the flow is at the core of the universe, the core of the galaxy. The flow is all there is. It is the source. And most of us, as we know, are not in flow.
Yes. And that is the whole purpose of all of us putting ourselves into service, right? Is to help people realize their sovereignty, to help them find that balance between that divine feminine and masculine, and to speak their truth. I think everyone should be speaking their truth. And we are, like you said, in a very patriarchal society, in London and in the US and most places, right? And
it's global, you know, the
global,
permeation.
right? It's a global patriarchy that is
extended through colonialism, you see.
Yeah.
Whether, you know, I mean, obviously you guys revolted against colonial pressures in the 18th century. But if you go to India, I mean, colonial Britain is still there. If you go to Nigeria, colonial Britain is still there. It's this spreading of the British Empire. Can you imagine, from this cold, grey, small, wet island, we created this empire, which no longer exists, of course. It's called the Commonwealth.
That's right. So in your feelings, in your words, how is, what are we experiencing right now as a global conglomerate? We're experiencing the collapse. To me, it seems like we're experiencing a collapse of the duality, and a collapse of that really we're moving into a place where the here and now moment is the only place that really needs to exist. Is that the way you see it too, Stewart?
I do. I feel that we're literally mutating as Homo sapien. We're transforming. Our cells are being palpated with light from the galaxy. We know that there are some extraordinarily unique astrological features and astronomical features that are happening at this time, which is bringing extraordinary waves of photonic light to our planet. This means that the whole of our organic fibrous substance of the blue planet of terra firma, of Mother Earth, is changing. And of course, we are part of that. We are co-created with it. And so our cells are changing, and we're moving into a recognition, I believe, on a very deep sensory level of the fact that we're a 12 helix being. And we're only living a double helix. So it's now time to awaken third helix, fourth helix, so that we literally aspire to what our divine blueprint is, which is why there were 12 angels of Atlantis, and the people living in Atlantis were living a 12 helix DNA.
Mm-hmm. So in the same way that the 12 angels of Atlantis hold space for each one of our 12 chakras, do they also hold space for each one of our 12 DNA helixes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's the energy that they imbue and bring across that helps us to remember, right? Or
yes, well, 12, I understand from their teaching, is the universal resonance frequency. 7 was the planetary resonance frequency. So we know the 7 wonders of the world, the 7 deadly sins, the 7 dwarves, the 7 last words of Christ, the 7 notes in the octave, the 7 major orifices in the body. It goes on and on and on and on and on. So that's the planetary resonance frequency. Now we know that the Schumann resonance is shifting with all of this light that's coming to us at the moment. I see the Schumann resonance as the heartbeat of Mother Earth. So her heartbeat is accelerating. And we all know that when we accelerate, we're excited. So there's something to do with the excitement that's taking place within the Gaia, within our bodies, which is to do with this unition into the new elements of the light. So Homo sapien, as we are, becomes Homo noeticus. In other words, we move from intelligence into wisdom, and then into Homo luminous. We become luminous beings. In other words, we become human angels. And, I've never seen a human being with wings, by the way. I mean, I have in stained glass windows. And I always remember my mother used to tell the story of introducing me at the age of 6 to this small child saying, "Mummy, what are they?" And my mother saying, "Oh, darling, they're angels." And with me saying, "No, they're not. They're not at all like angels." I believe that that's a construct created by the early church, that they're the saints, they're the patriarchs, and they're the angels, and they all have different sized halos, and of course the angels have wings. Whenever I've seen angelic energy, because these 12 archangels are immensely force. I mean, they when they first came to me, they said, "We're going to teach you over the next 12 years. You will not be teaching us for 12 years. When the student is ready, the masters come." And it was always about electrifying my body. So I went through huge shifts in my body to accommodate the energy of these beings, because although I appear to be a human being sitting here, I'm really a hologram for these angels.
Mm-hmm.
So I know how to regulate my body temperature. I know how to have acute respect for my internal organs, because they're used for the production of light. Mm-hmm. And when I become over fatigued, my liver automatically becomes challenged. And so physiologically, there's a minor breakdown within the pulse of my liver. So I know how to chant my liver back into harmony and gain access to stillness, because that's the doorway into the numinous.
Oh, beautiful. So utilizing sound healing and using the alchemy of your voice, right? Everything that you've been learning and growing in your creative growth cycle, as you put it.
Yeah, walk your talk, right?
Yeah.
Right. Sounds like it's a body, mind, body, soul tuning with vibration, and that can tune our 3D bodies as well as our etherical.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I work on the 12 chakra, Jason. So I chant. I mean, I have lots of sonic meditations where you can hear me chanting through to lead people into the chant on the specific frequency of bass all the way through to the stellar gateway.
Mm-hmm. And the base lower vibrations are usually in the earth and the roots, right? And as we reach these higher harmonics, right? And basically the highest that we can imagine in our heads is the highest it will go, right?
Yeah, yeah. And of course, in our history, all of the buildings that were significant to us, not necessarily our homes, but whenever we went into churches or cathedrals or basilica or into the great burghers, into the great town halls, that they were built by the masons, the master masons, and the master masons knew how to weave into the architecture earth, water, air, and fire, which in other words is physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So I work through the four bodies. And I mean, the chamber that I was master of voice for what, 13, 14 years, which is the reconstruction of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. The whole of the theatre is based on sacred geometry. It sits on 7 converging ley lines directly opposite St. Paul's Cathedral, which is the Earth Star chakra of the world. I mean, this is powerful force. So, actors, wonderful actors would stand on stage vibrating this force, and they would become so taxed that they needed to repair. So it was my job to always hold them in the power of how the geometries can inform us on earth, water, air, and fire levels. They're woven into the architecture.
Yes, yes. And when we create the audibly resonant hall, right, and it's imbued with this geomancy almost, right? It's geomancy. It's really as above, so below, and so we're able to create this space, and just by having it be in our physical space here, we're allowing our body to vibrate at a much higher level, right?
So absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, this is one of the downloads that I received from Lord Metatron, was a temple of purification,
Yes,
utilizing the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional, earth, wind, air, fire, and then the pyramid in the center that would
yeah,
really would be for when your whole body is vibrating in sync, right? The high priests would be able to, you only be able to enter if you have a balanced masculine and feminine,
totally,
right?
totally, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the way that we can rationalize this was that here we are, 3 men,
Mhm.
talking about this balance, that we can rationalize this by embodying the nature of the fact that the male is the dynamic force, the feminine is the still force, the effort and the free, the yang and the yin, the giving and the receiving, and that list goes off into infinity, of course, that these 2 essential energies can be harmonized within our bodies. But if we go back to what we were sharing earlier on, the doing does not allow us to be. If we are being, we are told it is wrong. So we have to get back to being, back to doing. And most of the time, we're not doing what we could be doing because they say so.
Mhm.
They being, our bosses or our spouses or our
Society.
lovers or society, the patriarchs. Except you're very fortunate because you've just acquired a new patriarch in the form of Mr. Biden, who is not telling anybody what to do. He's trying to elicit a completely different response. And as is Kamala, I think they're both breathtaking. Thank heavens, after 4 years of tyranny, basically.
Yes, of the polarization of economics and society. And yes, it's time for us to come together. It's time to everyone to realize that they are sovereign beings, and that they have the ability to do as source.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And I love what you do, Stewart. It's really empowering people to use their magic, not abuse their magic. Because if you're not using it, you are abusing it. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're not training yourself, someone else is training you. Same type of aspects that I go through in life. It seems that when I fall, it's not all me, but then when I look, it is all me, you know? So I think being mindful of yourself and of your magic, and others knowing what their magic is, it really enlightens them. Like, I'm worth it. I can do that. yes, you can do that. You can do anything anyone else has ever done and more in your way or in a better way. So when I see that spark go off, and my spark keeps popping off, and talking to people like you and surrounding yourself with people that have genuine, authentic love, and that agape love, the brotherly love, the sisterly love, to really, really get that across and to really get to know somebody. The only reason I feel that we're even talking to each other is to get to know ourselves better, because we're all one. And that's really the crux of the matter, I think, in life for myself. And I appreciate you and all that you do, because you're such a good example for all of us. And I have much to learn. Yeah.
Thank you. You know, I was so fortunate. My destiny has produced huge fortunes, meaning that I'm really, you know, I get the term master of voice from the craft of acting, because this is what was given to me at Shakespeare's Globe. You know, we based all of our precepts on the craft skills that would have been there in medievalism, and that it took 21 years to become a master, which meant that you became an excellent craftsperson. But right at the core of the craft of the actor is a truth of feeling statement. So how does a great actor, or maybe not so great, but you know, wherever they are in their journey, how does an actor make borrowed words credible? How does an actor play? You know, you and I are playing a really, really intimate scene. And what we're experiencing is the intimacy, but we're also aware of the fact that we're being watched by 2,000 people, and we're on a platform called a stage. How do we access that degree of truth? And so I've sat in rehearsal rooms for many, many, many years watching extraordinary actors not be so extraordinary, because that's often the case when we're working through things, you know, and then suddenly becoming luminescent in their presence. But the most evocative gem or jewel at the center of it is an unbelievably rich truth. And so I'm a bullshit counter. I don't play with illusion within me or without me. Now, obviously on the outside of me, if I need to recommend, I do it with grace. I do it with a carefrontation, not a confrontation. But you know, there's so much information around today that feeds our ego that we become very narcissistic. And I think we need to, you know, stop that. And really take ourselves in check. You know?
Absolutely. I find it. I mean, how often do we find ourselves there, right? Where we have an opportunity to either, you know, speak with love or speak from the ego, and it's that awareness that really does separate, you know, what you think, say, and do, in all things. Yeah, and yeah, so it's helping people discover that awareness for themselves, because you can't really. I mean, you can teach and you can show, and yeah, let me know if you agree with this, but you can teach and you can show, but you can't really have somebody embody it for you. You can't help somebody embody it. They have to do that themselves, right?
Oh, absolutely. There has to be a willing vessel who's willing to play and willing to enter into danger, because often when we need to confront the ego, we move out of comfort zone and we move into danger zone, which for me is so exciting, you know. But with all danger zone, as with great mountaineers, for example, you know, we just need to calculate our risks, and then we live life really dangerously, but we don't get hurt. But we have to come out of the comfort zone and get real and cease the constant preoccupation with the pain body. Oh, look what a sort of childhood I had, it was so terrible, you know. And of course, I'm not sending it up. I mean, it's a very, very real, but please, can you stop endorsing the negativity, endorsing, you know, let's move from the woe body into the wow body. And that's what I'm teaching. That's the angelic illumination, that the angels are saying, what's the problem? You know, come and join us in pure joy, pure delight, pure expansion, pure ecstasy. See yourself as at one with the universe. And the universe is filled, you know, the universe is an infinitely unfolding creative possibility full of love and joy. Just dance with the universe rather than, I can't do this. So I'm asking everybody who says to me, I don't know why that's happening. I don't know why I'm doing, I don't know why I'm feeling this. Stop I don't know. And
Mm.
take a moment, detach, feel stillness, observe, just tune in. What are you feeling? Because feeling is the language of the soul. And as a result of that, we suddenly come back into the richness of what we were sharing as being our sovereignty, which is that divine blueprint.
Mm. Oh, that's beautifully spoken, Stuart. And to add on to that too, I feel that there's also once you've enlightened someone to that beauty, you also have to give them. We also have to create a safe container around yourself so that you can stay in that container, right? Because there's so much illusion, there's so much, we have Dia, the goddess of illusion, just coming through and everything, and this misinformation, and that's the fight that we're against. Is that, and it's not a fight; it's a loving exchange for a better world for all, right? And but it just providing that container for them to stay safe in, so that they have a place to gravitate from like-minded people, to gravitate to someone who will accept that feeling and experience that love with them. And
Yeah,
everybody has
absolutely.
that. Not everybody has access to that.
Well, we all do, because actually what we're really describing is inherent. It is innate within us, the spiritual toolkit. It's just that our educational processes, the socialization models have led us away from knowing. It happens at home, because at home, hopefully, it's a loving container. Sometimes we know it's not, for karmic reasons. But as soon as we go out there, people start behaving so badly.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, well, are we going to endorse the poor behavior? This is not a judgment. It's just an observation. It's a discernment. I'm not judging it. I'm just simply saying there is unkind behavior. Be the change you want to see. Let's come inside. Well, why am I witnessing this? Do I really believe that I love me? Do I really believe that I am magnificent? Do I really believe that I am majestic? Do I really believe that I'm a child of God? Do I really want to look into the face of God, knowing full well that God will always love me, will always smile, and will always bestow grace wherever I am?
Mm-hmm. And when you embody that, then it is unwavering, right?
We become pillars of courage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is one of the lines in the I am mantra. I don't know if I've shared that with you, but I have, haven't I? It's, okay, so mighty I am presence, please consume my doubts, my fears, my judgments, my denial, my illusion, and allow me to be a pillar of courage. Yes, of course we shared it. Now it's all coming back. I know when as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's been it's helped me frame my life and frame my purpose. And I now notice when I fall away from that purpose, and I didn't always before, and it was easy to fall back into old habits or old patterns that weren't self-serving, serving, your true purpose. But now it's just so important that that I stay there for the health of everyone around me and everyone, and that we always align ourselves to that true purpose, and not have any sort of you can't waver from that, right? We can't leave that behind for any sort of reason. And I, even just recently have made those mistakes of saying, well, I'm doing a lot, I'm busy, so I might as well I can leave this stuff right now while I'm doing the other stuff. And spirit woke me up in a beautiful way. And that's and that now it's embodied now. I'm just gonna be fully embodied. Stewart, just beautiful conversation, brother. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
bless you. I know our time is marching on, and
Coming on, I wanted to let everybody on the replay on the call to know that about your Diana Voice of Change book and the Angel of Atlantis, brother. And I wanted you to be able to show those. And woo, it's a really beautiful story.
It's very easily found. Just go to dianathevoiceofchange.com or amazon.com, and there it is, Diana, the Voice of Change by Stewart Pearce. And yes, and there are many books. And then there's The Angels of Atlantis, which by yours truly, Mr. Pearce. And of course, the big attraction for many people is the oracle, the first oracle. There are two oracles of the Angels of Atlantis, which is an international award winner because of its artwork. I believe firmly in illumination. How can I teach angels or be with angels if I don't see the radiance of their being? You know, so I'm also a great believer in beauty. So I try and create beauty wherever I go. I feel it's an emanation of the divine.
Agreed. Amen.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you for all you've shared today. Thank you for sharing your space and your love with us and in our community. And we can't wait to have more opportunities to commune with you like
Bless
this.
you. Bless you.
Yeah.
Are there any final questions that either of you would like to ask?
I would like to maybe go through a snippet of a soul reading of sorts and what that is and how that is presented and the way you do it.
Well, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. We've forgotten that. We're really supernatural beings. So the question is really seeing, well, where in my life does spirit flow, and where in my life do I experience challenge? Physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, because that the indication, the crises, the challenge, the disalignments, the disenfranchisements, the feeling of disassociation, it's when we're not in connection with pure spirit.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what a soul reading is. It becomes a destiny check. It's like, so how's life?
All in the flow.
All in the flow. Okay, so that's something we would all like to be. But as you flow, are there any issues that come up which allow you to feel I'm not fully in flow?
So being mindful of the flow and seeing where those blockages are, those boulders in your creek or in your river, is what we have to be mindful of.
Yeah. And often the dear ones who come to me, they can see what, I don't call it a blockage. I talk about a holding. I was told persistently as a child that I was blocked. And it sounds so irremediable, you know. And I believe that once flow starts again, everything can be transformed. And so I talk about holding points. So where are the holding points? And that's when the conversation within the soul reading takes place of the dear one sharing with me, well, actually, I'm having a little bit of difficulty on this level with this person in the family or with this person at work. And what this begins to do is to reveal where we are not fully harmonized, where we're not in full coherence. It also means that it reveals where our vibrational matches lie. Because although we're looking at all of our brothers and sisters and saying, hi, that doesn't mean to say that we need to lie down with them, as the old proverb says. Am I meeting on this level, or am I meeting on this level? And often when we're meeting on this level, we just can't establish harmony with, it's okay. You're just not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be somewhere else, where we do. So it's a question of discerning, where do I need to be? So we begin to find, where is my soul family? Where is my monad? Where are my soulmates?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I resonate with that big time. And I believe that you brothers are my soulmates, and that's why we are here. I couldn't be more thankful for Jesse and the way that we flow and holding these mind shares, these heart shares with you and others that have coming on have really enlightened us. We're part of it. This is healing for us. This is talking about it, using our voice, using our angelic voice, and meeting those myriads of angels that created the soul inside of us, meeting them so that we're able to speak with them. They're not going to lower to us. So I really appreciate all of this. This is really cool.
It's a beautiful journey.
Bless you. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave you because I have to go to a meeting.
We love you,
Thank
Stewart.
you so much.
Thank you, brother. And
So Jesse, let's speak over the weekend and let me know how you are. And Jason, it's been wonderful meeting you. Love, 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 love.
Yes.
love for every heart and every mind, Stewart.
Bless you. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you.
All the love.